Hello, everyone. Hello, Timo. Good to
Hello.
see you as always. And while we're having people to join here, I'm Steph. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Avo. Avo fixes data quality for product analytics. We are here to talk about inheriting data debt and how we will tackle that, which is a subject that Timo and I have happened to us all the time.
Right.
So this is going to be a friendly conversation between two traumatized data practitioners.
I thought you would say veterans or so, but you can
Yeah,
also
aren't
say
they always?
traumatized. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
PTSD.
yes. About what happens when you inherit data debt. What does that look like, and how we tackle it? Yeah, before we dive into that, well, we're having some people join here. Timo,
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions
Yeah.
while we wait for people to join.
Usually you do it at the end, but
Yeah.
yeah. Let's do it now.
Okay.
At least
Okay.
I'm fresh. So,
Okay. So how do you drink your coffee? Let's start there.
black.
Yeah. Pour over, like a drip coffee type of thing.
Okay, we go this deep into this.
We go this deep, of course.
So definitely, so either filter, so I have a mocha master at home, which is definitely decent enough. If I have a lot of time, Chemex, so drip coffee. Definitely no espresso. So I'm definitely not an espresso type. So
Nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, important. This is important.
yeah,
What do you have for breakfast, Timo?
usually nothing.
Yes, exactly. You wait
So
until
French breakfast without a cigarette.
yes, exactly. Cool. So your first meal of the day is just going
It's usually
into
lunch,
lunch.
something, yeah, some small stuff for lunch and most of the stuff for dinner.
Yeah, cool. Uh, and what is your movie snack?
My movie snack,
Yeah.
I don't snack when I watch movies.
Wow. Is it like a stance that you have?
No, actually, it doesn't really fit. So I think I'm someone who dives really deep into movies when I like them. When I don't like them, I switch them off. And snacking doesn't really fit. But maybe I'm not really like a watching and snacking person. Also, like I don't snack when I watch football, which is often like has this boring moments quite often. But let's say when I watch football, I drink some beer, so that fits. But no snacking.
Okay. Wow, that's huge. All right. I guess that's like a huge hot take. So you're not like I think the most important part of cinema revenue is actually from
Yes, true.
people snack buying.
No, they basically.
Snack
I'm
purchases.
definitely guilty of cinema's downfall. First of
Yeah.
all, I don't go to the cinema anymore, and second of all, when the time when I went a lot into to the cinema, I never drank anything, never eat something. So
Yeah.
I
Okay.
was I was like the bare minimum person.
Okay.
But I
Yeah.
reserved pretty expensive seats. I mean, this maybe makes it.
You make up for it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We'll talk about expensive seats. We have some people that have joined us here for front row seats of talking
Yes.
about inheriting data debt part two, how to tackle it. We had a great conversation last week also with Drew from Mammoth Growth, which is
Yeah.
a fantastic partner of Avo as well. And I look forward to having this conversation with you here today, Timo. Thank you for answering those rapid fire questions.
Yes.
And welcome everyone who joined since we started. I'm Steph. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Avo again, and we're here to talk about inheriting data debt and how to tackle that. So, Timo, I will quickly introduce myself and Avo, and then hand the ball over to
Sure.
you for introductions. So, before though we do that, just to do some housekeeping items to get the most out of today's session. Just remember, we are excited for you to make it interactive, so you can post into the Q&A, post into the chat, DM me and Timo on the Zoom chat. We'll be monitoring that as well. And ask questions that way is also fine. And we are here thanks to you. So thank you for that. So don't be a stranger in the chat. We would like your questions, if you're thinking about it, someone else's as well. We will also try to follow up on them later. You can also post on the YouTube link after the fact, and we'll get to that there as well. And if you want to keep the conversation going, we would also love that. You can join us on our community Slack. Follow both of us, all of us, the Avo account, the DeepskyData, Timo and Steph on LinkedIn. I still say Twitter here, but I think
it's fine.
Unfortunately, LinkedIn is still LinkedIn is the main one for us these days. Unfortunately, Twitter just didn't pick it up as much after
It's changing for
happened.
some people, but
Yeah.
it's not always guaranteed. So,
But okay, so that's that. And so over to quick introduction. I'm Steph. Like I said, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Avo. Avo helps teams find, fix, and prevent data quality issues for event-based data. What that means in practice, we have customers like Fender, Wolt, IKEA, and also startups and scale-ups, and they use Avo to actually prevent the data quality issues at the source where the event is created, with cross-functional collaboration between the data consumers and data producers, but also just quality guardrails, automated guardrails that are in place that allows anyone to design high quality data. So that's the core of Avo. However, we also know that a lot of people, before they can get there, thinking about like these workflows, they inherit data debt. So I'm going to set the stage with inheriting data debt right after your intro, Timo. Over to you.
Okay, yeah, make a quick one. Timo, I'm the founder of DeepskyData. DeepskyData was for a long time a consultancy where we handled a lot of data debt. So this, I would say, 80% of our projects. And now basically DeepskyData has turned into let's call it an upskilling platform. It sounds really sophisticated. But what we do is like we produce free courses around this topic. So for example, we have a lot of stuff around how you prevent data debt from day one. And so that because like this is something we will go, I think, into a minute. It's like there are different ways how you can, first of all, get rid of it and then make sure that it doesn't come back. And so these are the things, part of the things that we teach there. And so right now everything is free, so you can just sign up and already watch, I would say, easily 20 hours of interesting stuff about event data.
Yeah, exactly. And among that content, you have amazing stuff about Avo.
Yeah, right.
Very
There's also like something about Avo. That's true.
I was on a call recently where someone was asking about Coach, and then they found it on your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah,
good.
Coachin is a hidden gem. So
Yeah, exactly. Okay, on that note, why don't I set the stage about inheriting data debt? So I will stop sharing my screen. So like I said, we have at Avo cared about data quality for a long time. We have this mission in Avo. We exist to inspire better data cultures so teams can build better user experiences. This really depends on quality data to make great decisions, build great models, all those things. And our fundamental belief is that the best way to do this is to prevent the data debt and to make sure you create high quality event-based data right at the source instead of fixing it in post, fixing it in the model stage in DBT, or fixing it somewhere downstream in the databases. Why? Because it's just more expensive and it doesn't scale as well. So it is more expensive to be in reactive damage control than to be in proactive data management. And anytime you build downstream fixes to the event names or the property names or something like that, then you're building a downstream dependency on whatever you do upstream for, following that. So, of course, we've had a product for a long time that really helps teams all around the world prevent them from creating this kind of a data debt. But the reality is most of our customers also have started up with a lot of data debt, because the reason why you enter the process of wanting better tools and processes to release better data with every single feature release is because you have a lot of shitty data.
Or at least you believe that. Yeah.
At least you believe you have a lot of shitty data. Wow,
Yeah.
it feels like you're saying something behind the scenes there. But so anyway, that's the reason why we originally shipped Inspector, which gives you an instant overview of what are the analytics events that you currently are tracking, shows you all of the discrepancies and conflicts that you have, and like all of the variations that you have of the game started event. And we're releasing some major iterations on the Inspector now in the next, or announcing it and launching it next week. And that is because we've just seen a lot of people need to take months, if not years, on sort of just mapping out this data depth and then figuring out where to go from there. And we want to help people go from having to do it in months and years or eternity to doing it in minutes, you know? And so that's the stage setting. So I just want to throw the ball over to you, Timo. Could you just walk us through, in your experience, what does it look like to inherit data depth?
Sometimes pretty painful. I said like, let's say why I said belief is like, sometimes I would say that the first stage is really like you think something is wrong. So it doesn't really feel right. But I think there are different kind of dimensions, and we want to go into tackle. So I will not go so much into like how the depth can look like. But what I always recommend is like to make really like a clear picture of what is not working. So do you have data where you think, okay, I can work with the data, but I don't trust if the volume adds up? So you sometimes have some, I mean, you can build a funnel and then you have, the funnel doesn't look right. So you have something where you think, yeah, there should be a drop off between 2 and 3, but the drop off looks too significantly, or it looks non-existing, which can also like, so you maybe have some insights from the data where you think, okay, like the volume. Then you maybe, and this is definitely often the case, you have more the problem that you don't have the right kind of event data there. So let's say you have a ton of event data, but you cannot find the right one. So you're not really sure. I don't know, you have 20, 30 events where you think, yeah, this could be a candidate for what I want to do, but I'm actually not 100% sure if I should use this. So, and there's no documentation. Maybe there's an old spreadsheet created 1.5 years ago where some of these events are mentioned, but not all of them. And so you don't trust the setup. I think this is like often like a starting point. So you don't trust the setup when you're the one who's responsible for it. I mean, you have to convince people to work with the setup. If you don't trust the setup, this makes it complicated. And I think these are the two major reasons where I would say where often like data depth becomes visible is like when people come to me and say, they often come to me as like, yeah, our tracking setup doesn't work. So, and then when we go in, like we usually end up in these two areas where we say, okay, some stuff might not be implemented in the right way, but most of the time it's like they have something which they cannot use because it doesn't really make sense for them. So one reaction is then, which is like adding to data depth, is like they implement something new on top of the existing one. So I usually call this like
at the fifth permutation of the game started event.
Oh yeah, 100%. And so I always call it like an excavation process, that when I go in, like we excavate all the different kind of layers of further setups where we identify these different kind of events. And this is definitely a clear sign for data depth, because like in the end, what I always tell people when they talk about with me about this thing is like, you have to ensure a high quality data user experience. And so data user experience means that people when they look at specific kind of events, they immediately get an idea what this means and what they can use it for. If not, they find it in a documentation. The documentation is up to date. And third of all, of course, like it's tracked in the right way. So let's say in the end, you can be sure that from the code implementation, it works like it is. And then when these three things are into place, then people are super happy to work with the data. But you have to achieve this. And this is often like the starting point of, let's say, the data debt that someone has inherited.
I like that. Or, I hate it. It's terrible, but I agree that there is this mapping to be done. So can you just walk us through, like what tools do you use to map out those event variations, for example, today?
Oh, that's a good question.
Tools meaning, I don't necessarily mean like a tool that you, just how do you do it?
I cannot spoil the inspector yet. I mean, but it's not always like the case. I mean, in the end, what we often do is, okay, I sit down with the team, we do a 2-hour workshop or 2-hour session, and they basically walk me through where they think it's most painful. So I want to get their original audio to what is painful and what not. And so I will ask a lot of why questions. Go, okay, why do you think this is not working? Why don't you really understand? And so on. And I usually do this with a setup where we have someone from the data team, if there's a data team. Sometimes you don't have this, sometimes just do it. Someone from the product team does it on the side or so. But at least hopefully the person who is responsible for the data setup. Then maybe 1 or 2 people who work with the data setup, and then most importantly, someone from the development team or 2 or 3 people from the development team. Because this setup can already answer a lot of questions, and sometimes we can even get some things done because the developers often look on the fly in code, because this is what developers do, to quickly check where the stuff is triggered. So we make a baseline assessment. But the complicated thing about, okay, what is wrong, what is not wrong is at least for me, is I have to have an idea where we actually want to end up. And so for me, the next step is not really to go into and to identify all the wrong things. It's more I want to identify what is the ideal state? What do we actually need? So we create first designs to see, okay, this is how we want to have the future look like. And then we do this nice exercise. And then, for example, I often use Inspector, that we connect Inspector, Arvo Inspector to the current setup. We collect all the events that are already coming in. And then we look into these events and look, okay, how can they map to the ideal version that we have? And so then we often find 40%, which already are totally fine. And we can get them approved from development. They're just missing the right naming convention often. So, but this is something, it's not so hard to change. So in the end, we can then either write the tickets to the developers to just change the naming, or we change them in the tools. Preferable, let's say solution number 1, we get the developers to change it. But they don't really have to implement something new. They just have to change 1 or 2 things. But the nice thing is we map it immediately against where we want to go. And for example, when you use the Arvo Inspector, then it's pretty straightforward. I mean, in the end, you can, just hey, look, this one is a good candidate. It doesn't really come in the right form. We can fix it. We can check it. I mean, this is testing it. I would still say testing event data or tracking data is one of the worst things. And this is maybe one of the major reasons why the data depth or data quality is adding up, because testing this stuff is super painful. So it's not always obvious where you can test this. So you have to go through the whole flow. You have to have the right conditions, because some events just trigger under specific kind of circumstances. So I had people writing long test playbooks how to test event data, and it drives you crazy. I mean, this is the reason why no one is doing it, because it takes easily 2 or 3 hours. One of the nice things, this is why I, for example, always work with Arvo in every project, is because it takes all the testing burden away from me. So we basically deploy it on staging. Yeah, we deploy it on staging. We have the script running. We get all the events in there, and I can immediately see what comes in and in which kind of shape it comes in. So I can quickly test the stuff without doing this crazy 2 hour, 3 hour session thing.
What a lovely thing to hear, Timo. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, because what I'm sort of what I've seen so many people have to do, and I remember the reason why we originally started deciding to build Avo Inspector, that is like
Yeah,
our this add-on product that streamlines your journey to better data. Is we just saw so many initiatives where people got stuck in having really bad data because they started this initiative to map this out, and that initiative took 5 months. And then, I mean, during those entire 8 months, then the tracking kept getting updated every single day with new
yeah.
releases. So like you're just chasing your tail when you're prioritizing what to fix. And it's like a really difficult process to do, but a lot of companies have to do that. But
And
I
you
think
create a lot of frustration by the people who basically have to follow up. If you do this for 6 months, you basically burn one person. So it's, yeah, because like you cannot do that. I mean, no one of us is built to go through the old flows the whole time again and check for the same thing again. I mean, this is the nice thing because you create programmatic solutions, because like for us humans, this is the most boring and annoying stuff to do. And also we start to make mistakes. I mean, then we don't really recognize when stuff is not coming in because like we are humans. I mean, this is hard
yeah.
to do. So you definitely, if you want to progress, definitely find a solution. I think another thing that also can help, especially when you talk about the 6 months mapping and we do something new, how to say, curb your ambitions significantly. So what I often see is like people are like, oh, we have such a bad setup. Now we build the ideal one. And they basically sketch out a palace and say like, look, we are now building a palace in the next 6 months.
Mm.
And nope. So just build a first functional building that can answer the, let's say that in the end, like can feed into the most important metrics that you're measuring at the moment, to answer the most, let's say, most important question, what drives your business, and start with that and get this bulletproof, and then have a setup that is monitoring this constantly and so on, and then go from there. So don't, how to say, don't try to overachieve because like you're so unhappy with the current state that you dream of an ideal state, and this is hard work. I mean, it's not easy to get there. So start small and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it is. You sort of have to put in some manual work there and put in the hours, but ultimately what we're trying to do is simplify that process. And based on your words here, it sounds like we've managed to do that. And based on the words of so many of our customers, we've managed to simplify this process. But I think what I wanted to also highlight here in the conversation today is sort of how to think about even getting started. And what I like about what you've highlighted already is you've highlighted the let's not start with just mapping out a bunch of here are all of the events that are wrong. Let's start with identifying what are the
Yes.
most important questions we have to ask. And then from there, what are the top 3, 10, 15 events that we need for that? What is wrong with those events today? And how do we get those events to a better state?
Yeah.
Am I butchering your message?
No. The message is definitely good. So this is totally right. I think one thing that you always keep in mind, at least like this is, it's something new that I tell people, identify what is possible. So I often have this, then I talk to people, they're totally motivated to do it better. They're very idealistic about what they want to achieve. And then they get super frustrated because like they basically get burned in the whole process, because like you have to get resources. I mean, if you want to implement this stuff, you have to get development resources. And as everyone know, in a productive company, it's pretty hard to get development resources.
Yeah.
And so create an ambitious plan. I think this is definitely always a good idea, but then strip it down to the essentials and be realistic what you can do. And also like how you can sell it, or let's say not sell it, but how you can place it or communicate it internally. So to get the buy-in from developers. And so if what you just said, if you do it like this, that you pick the questions that come up in every kind of meeting. You always have these constant questions where people are asking, hey, okay, I don't know, does the onboarding process really help us? Or is this feature really relevant for us? So pick these things that always come up and then put this into place, say, okay, this is the stuff where we want to get the right event data for it to answer it. And then if you have this, it makes it also like a lot easier to go over to develop and say, like, look, you asked this question as well. So you're interested, you want to know.
Yeah.
Because like the interesting thing is, like, especially about developers, like if you involve them, they are building this thing. If you build things, you usually want to know if it was worth the time of investment or not. I never really came across a developer who says, I don't care, I just code it away and I don't really care what comes up. Every developer I know is super curious about to see if it's
That's the thing.
Yeah, right.
That's so important.
And it's often really missed. And so, like, don't miss the opportunity to do this together with them. I mean, it's like event data setup and design and so on. It's like it's a collaboration effort. I mean, you said it before. So it's rarely one person sits down at a desk and invents the universe, and then everyone is basically super happy with that. Because, like, I can definitely tell you, it's not like this. So your mind is not working like this, that it can handle all the different kind of things. And I can tell you the true magic happens when you involve this different kind of people.
Yes.
And with that, you can then develop this roadmap where you can say, okay, we start with these 5 events. They will answer these pressing questions. Then people will see, oh, look, that's really great. And I can tell you, when you do something successful in data and people can answer some questions, you can be sure the next question comes next Monday. So the next one, we're like, oh yeah, I would really love to see this. And then you basically have this process rolling. But then, of course, like, then we come back to this, you need the operations around that. So, and then this is like why I want to have a testing solution. So, because in the end, when someone comes around and said, look, we have this important thing, growth team is really depending on that. I want to get this shipped in 3 weeks. And to ship new events in 3 weeks definitely requires either a very good person with a lot of time, or let's say some support from systems. So you definitely need some system support to do that, I would say.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, so system support, I want to double click on that.
I mean, we do this in all our work. So we use task management systems to basically work together on tasks, because, like, it's quite handy when 2 people can write their comments into the same place, and so that you don't have to look for emails where someone comment on things. So there is a way how software and systems can basically reduce time and effort of steps in between. It sounds a little bit theoretically, but the testing example is the best one. So when I'm working on new event design, as said, like, I want to define it. I want to see, okay, it's implemented on staging. I want to immediately see how the data comes in staging, because then when I already see, like, there's an issue, I can immediately create a ticket or follow up from that. I can say, like, look, looks good. Here's the link. This property doesn't really fit because, like, I don't know, you did the wrong type or whatever. Here, you can fix it. And by the way, you can always look here how the event's coming in to the developers. And so you don't even have to pass the ticket to me. You can always check on your end if it's right, and then you can pass it to me. So I can take a lot of friction away. And I can implement this also, like, as a layered approach. So I start pretty simple with these, let's say, if I go for Arvel, like the inspector mode, so I can implement this as a first place, because, like, this also creates, I mean, this is even great when you give developers, like, a place, like this page, when you go there, you can immediately check on staging how the stuff comes in and if it's right or wrong. Everyone who's doing development knows that development works best when you can immediately see if something right or wrong. If you need to push something somewhere and then ask for someone to give you feedback, it's super annoying for development workflow. Development workflow is like, I do something, I immediately get the feedback, good, not good. I mean, this is the nice thing about development. It always tells you good or not good in the ideal way. And so if you have this in place, you can increase data quality already by this, also back to developer experience. And at some point, you might even go a next step and implement something like CodeGen, where, like, the developers already have the experience of an SDK they work with, where a specific kind of errors cannot really happen because, like, the SDK doesn't allow to write the event in a different or in the wrong way, or to make a mistake with the type of the properties. And this again, like improves developer experience, and improved developer experience, especially by event data, is always improved data quality.
Yeah, exactly.
It always goes hand in hand. So if you have a good developer experience, usually like you get really good data quality, at least from my experience.
I love that you're saying that. What's interesting here is I'll add this little tidbit here. Obviously, when we originally started Avo, it was because, and I know you know this story, Timo, but I'll just share it real quick. It was because we had had this problem, of course, with event-based data quality internally at our previous company, QuizUp, and it had been a collaboration between the data team and the development team, the developers, the product engineers, to figure out how can we reduce the headache that this is causing. And it wasn't only causing headaches for the data team, it was causing headaches for the product engineers all the time, because they were always like getting thrown some requests to fix something after the fact, and they were being asked to fix code that they touched maybe 2 months ago, or more or less, but all of a sudden they don't have time for it because they already moved to something else. And even if they if we hadn't released the update already, it was still so expensive because of the overhead, the task switching overhead. And I think that's really expensive. It's so expensive for everyone. So it was the incentive of the developers and the CTO to actually fix this problem at the source of where the data is created, so it isn't causing all of these headaches. And that was how we originally started building these tools for collaboration. And when we started building Avo, it was because we found ourselves at the next company missing those tools again, and needed to build them again. And we're like, that can't be. We have to be able to buy them again now. But it wasn't the case. And so, okay, but the ultimate game changer in how I was thinking about it is, if we smoothen the developer experience, we will smoothen the experience for the entire data team and the product team to make better decisions. Because we're going from seeing analytics as a chore that they really hate doing, developers, to becoming something that they enjoy doing and find value out of doing, because it helps them answer better questions.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, like, for example, context or task switching, I think is one of the most underestimating frustration, or let's say, I don't know, maybe frustration levels that you don't really see. And you often also when you do it yourself, you don't really experience, you cannot really tell it yourself, but it's definitely nagging. And one of the things, like when I talk to product people, how I try to explain it to them, because like they don't develop, they don't really know what it means. But I tell them, like, look, you like to do product. When I come around, let's say I'm finance, I come around and say, hey, I have these 10 items that basically got booked from our account. Find the invoices for them and send it to me. This is stuff that you hate in product, because you say, hey, this is not my core job. Why should I do that? But this is basically the same when you just throw over a ticket calling like, hey, this is tracking code implemented. And
not inspiring.
In the worst case, you just send over, hey, I want to have this kind of stuff. You don't send any kind of information how the tracking code works, which kind of SDK they should use, where is the documentation for it, what are the specific things they have to take care of. I mean, they work in their code base all the time. Now it comes like you come with a third-party library where they have to invest time. And as you already said, they invest time for something that they do every 6 or 10 weeks. It's not like that they do it every day. It's not like that. You have in big setups, you sometimes have people do a lot of, let's say, implementation. So you build up this kind of expertise, but this is rarely the case. Most of the time you have people doing 2 or 3 implementations a year. And for them, it's always like starting over. It's always starting over and learning new. And as we all know, this is super frustrating. So the easier you can do it there, you can definitely prevent, let's say, the future data debt on the technical side. So the other thing which I always then say, this is part 1, part 2 is like design. I think what often like people really underestimate is like, if you really have a good event data design, you can prevent a lot of data debt issues in the future. And it's not easy to get there, but it's definitely worth. So this is also like why I tell people is like, don't go with the first version and say, let's implement that. So treat it like an architecture for a house. It's also like not like you do the first sketch for a house and say like, we go for it. No calculations needed. And so we don't even have to check if this static requirements are met and so on. That's like, it's the same with an event data design. So go on iterations, talk to people. Is the language, can people understand the language? Do people get what is there? Is it too granular? I think most of the problems in designs that I see is like people go too granular.
Mm-hmm.
Can you answer, and then the big question, can you answer the business question? So ask management, what kind of questions do you have? And then look at the events that you have and like, okay, how would I do this? And if you already come up with weird stuff to get from an event to something that, let's say, is required in some reports, so you have to get through a lot of steps and do a lot of calculations on the way, it's definitely an indicator that your event data design is not really good to answering these kind of business questions. So
Yeah.
go back, make it better.
I want to use this opportunity because you brought up the business questions. I want to use this opportunity to go back to when you're getting started in tackling the data depth. When you to go back to the stage setting, you either joined an organization that had a lot of events with a lot of permutations, or you're a consultant and you're taking it over, or you've been at the organization for a while and all of a sudden the sort of just that has become, it's grown and you didn't notice it, you know. It's like a death by 1,000 like tiny like needle stabs, and or paper cuts, and all of a sudden you realize that it's just the organization is growing maybe, and people aren't able to use the data, so you are sort of forced into a position of starting to clean it out. Someone inherits that role somehow. Either because you're really passionate about making data quality and like data product experience better, or the organization has decided that you're going into this and sort of you're taking one for the team here. And so one of the things that you brought up is start with the top priority business questions. But I wanted to maybe add one caveat to that and hear your thoughts on this, which is, I think that depends a little bit on whether you're starting this with a company-wide buy-in, or if you're starting it as like an analyst on your own and you're not really sure how to get buy-in from the organization. And I want to maybe ask you, what do you think about the sort of difference of those situations, and how do you get started if you're just an analyst and the company is not aware how big the depth is?
Yeah, good question. I mean, yeah. In the end, I mean, there are different approaches to that. I have one which I favor, so I just go with this one. So wherever I get started, and so, I mean, of course, like as a consultant, I usually come from the outside. I want to understand two things. I want to understand how the business works in general. So how does the business model work? So where are the new customers coming in? How do they get qualified? How do they get converted? Where does the revenue come from? So like a really major question, because like this is like kind of the driver. And then identify basically what is driving it. What is driving the revenue? So what basically, in which team or in which kind of function is, let's say, most of the power to bring the business forward at the moment. And this is also like a little bit understanding how people think. I mean, you can come to companies where people always say, yeah, we trying PLG, we doing PLG, or a PLG first company. And then, but when you look behind the scenes, you can definitely see, no, it's actually still a lot of, let's say, sales inclusion, because like these are driving the big account. So then like the takeaway from that is like, this is where at the moment the magic is happening. And so why you should do this is like to figure out where impact is happening, because like in the end, impact is the first thing you want to look for, because there you can then build your business case. So in the end, like you can look into the data, you can look, okay, let's assume sales is not using any kind of event data at the moment. So they just do what salespeople do their stuff in their systems, don't really want to look in any kind of system as well. So what you can do is like, if you want to make this event data setup more useful for the companies, like you can try to understand how they basically run their sales pipelines, how they do this. And so at some point, you might come to a point where you identify, okay, they have 200, 300 leads a month, and there are 5 people. And so they cannot call everyone of these 200, 300 leads. So in the end, they always make decisions about, okay, who should be prioritized? And so you can come in and can say, look, these are all people who are already on a free account. And so what I can do for you is like, I can basically develop a model where I can show you like within your tool, if they have done the core things that we now together define what they should have done, that they become a high priority lead for you. So I don't know, set up a project or whatever like the tool does. And so you do it with them. This setup is not so hard. So in the end, like you might end up with 3, 4 events that you need to implement and then sync it up to their CRM. But this creates a story for you that can unlock a lot of more things than within the company, because like the sales team will always tell like, yeah, look, we work together with this person with really great stuff. And this is a really good use case because like I implemented this, I think 3 or 4 times already. And this usually makes sales teams pretty happy. But I think the important thing is like really to understand. I think in data, I think it's essential in every position, but in data, I think it's the most important thing for you is to understand kind of the value chain which happens in the company, to identify the spots where a lot of value is generated, where you can help. Because in data, you're always dependent on other teams to create the value. You by yourself don't create any kind of value. So you're always dependent on someone takes what you give them and makes it, I don't know, into revenue or makes it into process optimization or whatever. And so this is why you have to understand this and really find the places, right? And this can then again, it can minimize the effort to create something new. So because like it might be that for first step, you don't really need so much stuff. So, and shy away from people saying, yeah, we want to have this kind of dashboard to show things. So dashboard is not something that creates value. It's usually the things that people do with the dashboard. So if someone comes around and say, hey, I want to have this kind of dashboard,
I love that.
Try to understand what they are planning to do with it. And also help them. I mean, maybe they just have a rough idea, but you can definitely help them to go from there to something. And then it makes it a lot easier for you, what you want to do.
I love this framing. Dashboards usually don't create value. It's what you decide to do with the dashboards. I think that's really great. But I think you sort of hit the nail on the head with what with the thing that I was thinking about, which is find a use case that isn't maybe necessarily, you know, the key business question, but it's all about relationship building and use case building for your original internal case study, basically. So I think
the important thing is always like challenges, because like you will get use cases. And I know, for example, a favorite use case that you always get up when you do product analytics is the product team asking you which feature is used most of the time. And this kind of use case is totally useless. Like, who cares? People log in. This is most likely the most used feature. So, but you have to get to the point where you investigate with the product team is like, where does something valuable happen for the user? So where is the product team convinced when people do this, they really get what this application is about? So let's say in an Arvos case, it's like maybe they share the first tracking plan with other people. So this might be something where you can say, hey, yeah, there must be something valuable because people put in the work to create something and then invite other people to look at it. So it is in a state where people are quite happy with the result. And so, and these are the things you want to identify with them. And then you have a different kind of conversation. If you go down this way where they say, yeah, we want to know which feature is used, you end up with a lot of work to identify that. And also like you have to track a ton of events to do that. And in the end, like the results of that doesn't really change anything because like, yeah, I never saw good analysis in this kind of direction that really helped.
Yeah, I love that. So we're getting a few questions here, and I don't think that, we'll try to get to a few, but we'll end this in a very short time. So, but this has been great so far. Maybe I want to ask one, if you and those who are here, if you want to throw in other questions, go ahead, throw them in, and we'll try to otherwise follow up via email or Slack or something if you have any other questions, or LinkedIn. So what roles are involved in this process? I think that's interesting. So when I assume what this question means is when you inherit data debt, I guess, who is it? Who inherits the data debt, and who does that person need to bring along with them for the ride?
Yeah, first of all, of course, like, are you the one who is really owning this? So sometimes people are affected by data debt and they feel huge pain, but they definitely don't have the ownership for it. And so you first fight an ownership problem, or you have to solve an ownership problem. Often, like, event data setups don't have a clear ownership. So this is problem number one. So data debt usually starts when 10 people share this ownership. So first of all, if you're in this position, you don't have the full ownership over this, over the event data, get the ownership. Part number one. Often easy because, like, people don't want to have it. So if someone is about and saying, hey, I take care of that. So people usually are quite happy about that. But you have to make it clear. So it has to be clear within the company that you are the person who's responsible. So everything goes through you, which can create a lot of work and problem on your side. So be aware of that. And I think the second one is definitely get some higher hierarchy buy-in. So this can be, I mean, of course, like, if you get carte blanche from the CEO, definitely a good one, because, like, you can always walk around with that and can say, look, I have, like, it's a, I don't know, a lighthouse project. So CEO wants to solve, so usually get a lot of more attention with that. More ideally is like what I just pointed out before, when you can really find the scenarios where you want to improve something. So for example, if you want to improve something for the sales team, so you get the head of sales on board, and so they will push it through for you. So you definitely need someone, a sponsor within the company, who is not, let's say, the head of data sometimes, but definitely better in another business team to support you with this kind of initiative, just to get the support to open the doors to talk to people. And then the rest is like convince the other ones who are involved in this. So, like, get product engineers on board. But this is more like, this is on you. This is like, build up this collaborative kind of work, involve them, make it a team effort and not, let's say, a single person effort. Yeah, I would say in this kind of setup, you can do a lot of stuff.
And maybe as one addition to this, I completely agree with the get the higher buy-in. Maybe addition to that is, like, if you can have worked on, like, one of those, like, smaller initiatives as a case study.
Yeah.
Before you bring it up, as to get, like, a buy-in for something bigger. And if you can maybe do some mapping of how serious is the problem, just highlight the problem. I think that both of those are sort of helpful. Highlighting the problem and the impact of that will help you do those.
Right. In the end, you have to build a business case, and therefore, highlighting the problem definitely important. Yeah.
Highlight the problem and highlight the, like, a use case where you've created value. That's really what maybe one more question here. It's not an easy one to end with, but how can I build confidence internally with our data consumers that our data is reliable? Yeah.
This is definitely not easy, because, like, the problem with confidence or trust is, like, it's not really a technical problem. So I was working in setups where the technical quality was high and we could prove it, but the distrust, because of history, was super low. Or distrust was super high, or the trust was super low. And in the end, it's the same like when you want to get people into church. So you have to convince them. And so you have to talk to them. You have to, or like into groups, maybe you can. But you have to convince them. So you have to sit down with them and understand, okay, why don't you trust the data? Let's go into this. I really want to understand, why don't you trust? So they might come up, yeah, but 2 years ago we had this kind of thing. So then you can show them, look, we have these kind of things in place. If you have testing in place and so on, showing this can create a lot confidence. When people can see, look, I can even show you, like, we put a wrong event in there and you can see I get an alert here in Slack. And so we immediately create a ticket of it. So
you're saying, Timo,
Yeah.
Show them Avo.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like,
I
yes.
love that.
Yeah. But in the end, like, show how the machine works.
Yeah,
What
exactly.
you have improved, because like this is the only way how you can get the confidence back. And it might be other things. It might be that people say, I don't really understand what's there, so I more have a general understanding problem, so I just say I don't trust the data. But in reality, it's more like I have no idea how I should get started. And so then you can identify training efforts where you can say, okay, look, I run a workshop one time a month where everyone can join who wants to join. And then besides that, we have 2 times office hours. So if you really have a problem, you don't want to come forward, go to the office hour. We can talk through your case. We take the time, 20 minutes, to check really hands-on to do this stuff. So there are a lot of ways around that you can build to regain trust. But it can be a longer process, but you win person by person. So you win the first person trust again, you win the second person, these persons will influence other persons. This is why I said church, because like in the end, trust is believing. So you have to make the people believe it.
Wow. Those are great final words. And again, we're always stitching it back to build relationships. That's such a key process.
This is the essential thing. I think this is like the one big mistake that everyone in a data team can do, is to stay isolated. Development team can exist perfectly in an isolated state. Not perfectly, but they can for a long time, and they don't really create a lot of harm, because like yes, they need influence from other parts too, but still, I think they have a more opportunity to do something on their own. Data teams have no way to do this.
Yeah,
it's the
exactly.
same like product teams. Product teams also cannot exist on their own, because they by themselves don't produce any kind of value. And it's the same with data teams. So you have to, make, how to say, stakeholder relationship management.
Yeah.
Put it in a business term.
Well, Timo, as always, this has been an absolute pleasure. And I can't wait for our next session. Maybe we'll do another one where we'll actually dive into some product stuff. That could be fun.
Oh, yeah.
But thank you so much for taking the time, Timo. It was great to be here with you. Everyone, thank you for joining us, and anyone who's watching this after the fact, thank you so much for doing that. If you have any other follow-up questions, Timo, where can I find you?
I think best is still LinkedIn. So just find me on LinkedIn, write me a message. I answer every question that people send me directly. Sometimes it takes a week or 2 until you get the answer. So
sounds good. Same here. And if you want to learn more about Avo, go to avo.app. And try that out. Talk to us on LinkedIn, join our Slack community, the right track.avo.app. Thank you so much for joining us. See you again.
Thank you for having me.
Later. Yeah.
Yes,
Ciao.
right. Ciao.